So hello everybody, thanks for attending. I'm gonna have two hats on today, one as myself and one as my colleague Tracy, who's unfortunately on a plane right now and couldn't be here. So we've all heard a lot about AI today, and we heard, I think it was last week or the week before, Sam Altman from ChatGPT going to the American Congress and saying we need to take a break from this, guys. It's dangerous. It could be the end of civilization almost. But what does it mean for libraries? And as a librarian myself, I'm very keen to find out. So I looked at Clarivate's official policy on AI, and it's really to do no harm. Basically, to do good with the data we have, the content we have, and counteract bias. Any AI algorithm is only as good as the data it's trained on, and that's an important point. And bias can become a negative loop if we're not careful, but it can also be a positive loop with the right data. And above all, protect your data. So just for fun, I downloaded an AI chatbot to my phone and asked, what are the opportunities for librarians with AI? And actually, the response was pretty encouraging. You can see only a bit of it there, but it went on for pages and pages of all the good things that could happen for librarians as a result of AI. I also asked, well, not asked a human being, but took an extract from a human being, Marshall Breeding, who you all know is the library consultant from the US. He has a mixed message, really, about the importance of AI to librarians, but on the whole, there are opportunities. So what have we been doing at Clarivate? Well, in the ex libris part of the house, we've been looking at ways so that libraries can do more with the same, so that the system can learn and automate repetitive tasks, learn from what libraries are doing, and automate them even more, a kind of virtuous circle. So one of the things we did way back in 2019, pre-pandemic, was introduce DARA, which is a recommendation engine for librarians. It's basically looking at library workflows and looking at anonymous logs of what other libraries are doing and recommending actions that will speed things up in future. So it could be as mundane as buying more copies of things that are in high demand, or licensing more seats for an e-resource. But it could be harvesting sushi counter stats that you weren't aware were available. So here is an example where the system has identified that a publisher that you work with is now sushi compliant. There's no way you can keep up with these things yourself unless the publishers tell you. But the system's told you because somewhere else on the planet, a librarian has enabled sushi for that publication. So not only is it alerting you, but it's also populating the form that enables you to collect the statistics automatically in future. And if you're wondering about the evidence of where it comes from, that's clear, transparent. Where it comes from, you can view why it's recommending an action before you actually take the recommended action. And you can choose not to take the recommended action if you don't want to. And you can also help DARA to learn and feedback so that the algorithm gets better and better at speeding things up for you and giving you recommended actions. On the front end side, for students and researchers, we've done a lot of work on resource sharing, and we think the current situation with resource sharing is suboptimal from the point of view of the student and the researcher. There's too many options that they don't understand, and what they need to see is basically the kind of thing that they're used to with Amazon. Just a list of how do I get it, what's the cost, how long will it take, and then I can make an informed decision about which one I want to do, bearing in mind the urgency and the cost. And I don't really need to know or care what's going on underneath. It just happens, and I don't need to leave the library interface. Also, we've done more from, sorry, I've just realized the display's a bit mangled. Hope you can see it okay. But we've also done a lot on front-end discovery. And one of the obvious things is more personalized recommendations. So an algorithm that learns from a user's behavior what their discipline is, rather than having to tell the system up front that they're a chemist, not a biologist, or whatever. And so it can tweak the recommendations for further reading according to who they are and what they've looked at before. At Clarivate, we also encompass the innovative group of products, and we've been doing work in that space as well. So for public libraries, principally at the moment, we've been using a nice combination of artificial intelligence and BibFrame. And that's a really exciting combination, because you can take the data as it is, marked data. You don't have to do anything to your existing marked data. The system translates it to BibFrame for you, and that frees the data so that you can create connections, create groupings, recommendations, do whatever you like, even if the original data doesn't have those connections. So examples are building showcases, collections, grouping together formats. So this is more with a public library hat on, and chatbots. So for regular things like who wrote blah, 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 what's the next edition or in this series, or can I place a hold? The chatbot can deal with it. For more complicated queries, such as I want something about this, but it's only suitable for this age and blah, blah, blah. It can bring in a real live librarian to do some recommendations for you. So in conclusion, we believe that the combination of libraries and AI is a good thing. In fact, it's crucial that libraries come into this sphere and come into it fast, really. There's a whole morass of bad data out there that chat engines, that AI engines could get hold of and cause bias, and the bias will only get worse. So we think libraries have a key role to play here, and we want to work with libraries going forward to make sure that the opportunities are exploited. So that's the end of my presentation as myself. So I'll move on to... So, can we have the next presentation? No. Ah, okay, no it is. Okay, so a quick survey. How many people here can honestly say that they get full collaboration from their researchers and academics with populating the institutional repositories? So nobody. So why not pay to get AI involved in this as well? Why not automate it? There's enough identifiers out there, there's enough technology out there, there's enough content out there to make it more automatic. And that's what we've done with Esploro. So Esploro is more than a next generation institutional repository. It's actually AI in action for research assets. And by research assets, we mean more than just learned articles. We also mean the research data that underpins the research. And a big effort went into way when institutional repositories started to getting researchers to part with their final published outputs. That was hard enough in itself. Getting them to part with their research data and then linking the two together is a major headache for librarians and for research officers as well. So our smart harvesting technology, it's called the Smart Harvesting Engine, captures all range of different resources. So scholarly articles and book chapters, yes, obviously, but also AV content, citations, data sets, open access content, dissertations, patents, grants, and media mentions as well. Lots of universities are interested in media mentions because it's quite good if your academics have done something that's got attention in the general outside world. It learns as it goes on. So it learns the variants of a researcher's name. So it gradually gets better and better as the weeks go by when you implement it, at pulling in your researcher's data. And you can also bring in things that they published before they became a member of your institution, if you want. So further enriching your repository. And it adds missing data, removes duplicates, and each load improves accuracy. So, and this is an ongoing and continual process. Of course, you have oversight as the library, and in the early days, as the algorithm is getting going and learning who your researchers are, you might want to intervene more often and push it in the right direction, that this is Professor X from your university and not Professor X from another university with a similar name. But once it's learnt, and it keeps getting better. So we did this because we're actually sitting on a huge mass of data, and that should actually save 5 billion records. So our central discovery index is large, but it's also, it has a lot of variety. It has a lot of different types of data, not just articles and chapters. But we also have the technology, the machine learning expertise within the company to bring them together. So it seemed an obvious thing for AI to address. So looking at the content, so we're looking at over 5,000 content providers. That includes open access ones, a lot of institutional repository content. We're also enriching with ORCIDs, DOIs, and so on, any clue that we can get to try and disambiguate records and make sure that we're bringing in your records. We're also bringing in theses and dissertations from the ProQuest thesis and dissertation database, audio, visual content, special collections, and so on. So for you, this means that we can build a repository for you programmatically with your help. Just an example, does it work? The proof of the pudding is in the eating. And you can see we did a comparison, and we often do these comparisons of how much content from a particular researcher does Esploro pick up through its machine learning versus how much content did the original manual repository, DSpace or whatever. And in every case, Esploro pulls in a lot more. It spots things that even the researcher maybe had forgotten they produced earlier in their career. So implementation, it's easy. We have the tools to migrate from, fortunately, these repositories were built using open standards, and the data is pretty standard. So it's easy to migrate from DSpace, ePrints, Fedora, and all the rest to get you going. But then the smart part comes. That's expanding what you've got there with identifiers and keys that enable the engine to get going and pull in your data. And then the smart harvesting comes into effect. So that's automatic and constantly enriching the quantity and quality of the data that you have. Now, we're not hooked to Mark or BibFrame or anything. We realize that there's all manner of different research assets out there. Researchers are always coming up with new formats, maybe particular to a particular discipline, a particular field of study. And you can't have one metadata format that suits all of these things. So we already support nearly 100 asset types, but we'll be adding more and more. In terms of internal library workflows, for those of you with the Alma suite of products, there's obviously seamless integration there. Alma becomes the back office of Esploro, but Esploro is also available standalone, and the University of Johannesburg here has Esploro standalone. They don't have Alma, so that is also possible. And it's quite easy to implement. It automates DOI publishing. It integrates with electronic theses and dissertations from ProQuest, so you don't have to populate things twice. And it makes things seamless for the researcher in the odd occasion when a researcher has to manually submit something, which should almost never happen. It makes it very, very simple for them. And we do it through integration with different partnerships. And obviously you don't need to read all these out. You know them very well. But it means we're pulling in data and exposing data in every possible way possible. So it's not just about pulling the data into the repository, but also getting it out there into Google Scholar, making sure it's measured properly through impact factors, through alt metrics, through social media accounts, and what have you. And yeah, we have a nice quote here. Basically, yeah, do take a look at the UJ portal as well. It's nice and clear, and I think they made a good job of customizing it. So do take a look at that. But here's a quote from Southern Cross University. It's easier to use. It's a modern day platform, but it's more than just an institutional repository. It takes it into the 2020s. So to find out more, Tracy's not here today. She's in the air at the moment, but yeah, come to the booth, talk to me, or you can contact Tracy directly. Thanks.
Thank you, Robert. I have some goosebumps. You know why goosebumps? Because when we started 12, 13 years ago around, do we need robots? What do we need for our collection management and then shelving and so forth? We had issues that were cutting jobs and, labor issues and so forth. And now you are now removing the roles that we are assuming, and now they are much more in the AI space. It's quite interesting what's happening out there. Whilst we're still catching up and saying we need to sort this out, and then you are on this D-Space version, you think you are the best thing since sliced bread, then you wake up, oh, now we have something else that's coming up, and it's a challenge. So colleagues, I'm waiting for questions. Hello out there. We're here waiting for your questions on the floor. Dora, do you still have a job after this? Huh?
Okay, Claire. Robert, I would like to know, with all these incorporations, let's call it that, of Clarivet and all the other products, does your Converus also now talk to this Explorer product, because it also contains research information? Because I know that one is definitely behind the paywall, it's not open access. Or how does that then bring into all of this into equation?
Well, so as a librarian myself, and coming from the Ex Libris and innovative part of the company, Esploro was built with the library philosophy in mind. It's about getting the data and pushing out the data, getting it, enriching it, describing it, and making it available as quickly as possible. And Esploro is the one for that. It's coming at it from the library point of view. I actually don't know much about Converus, but the aim of Esploro, I mean, it does touch on the research office as well, but Esploro was envisaged as primarily a library tool. But yeah, we often find that research officers and librarians are doing similar jobs in certain ways that overlap. And we're seeking to bridge that gap, basically, and prevent duplication, and yeah, getting a better records and more comprehensive coverage.
And then just quickly on Dora, does that one only incorporate, does it also incorporate with the other traditional triple I products like Sierra, or does it only work with all the new other products that you have?
Dora only works with Alma at the moment.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Robert, what is TE? The question from Andrew support. What is TE? Andrew, where did you see TE? What is TE? TE with a capital T and an E.
I'm not sure I saw that.
Henri, can you write again? What is TE? Can you tell us more in big abbreviation? What's that? Robert can't comprehend that. It might be on the slide from Tracy.
Could it be thesis and dissertations?
Oh, yes, ETDs.
ETDs, okay, yeah. But it's written TE there. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So yeah, PQDT, ProQuest Theses and Dissertations, is a ProQuest product that's extremely useful. it captures a whole new swathe of content that's not, the learned articles and so on. But it's equally valid, I would say. It's important to capture, and it often captures research at an earlier stage in the research life cycle, well, in the early stage of a researcher's life cycle, in fact. So, yeah, I would urge people to take a look at BQDT, and yeah, that's obviously embedded in all our products, so that content is there.
What is the difference what is the difference? I think he's trying to say, what is the difference when one is using Google Analytics?
So, well, the analytics in Esploro will tell you about the use, well, not just the use, but everything about the data in your Esploro. So Google Analytics will give you that comparison with other people's repositories,
Okay,
I guess, yeah.
Further, she wants to know whether, can that also be used as for comparison? You just highlighted that. Okay, another question, I think you've answered that. Bongi Mputi, is the smart harvesting similar or different to Panorama EBSCO? They're making you now fight, you see.
I don't know anything about Panorama. I understood it was more about library analytics.
Don't talk about another business.
But I don't know. So I don't know. I can't really comment whether it's the same thing or not.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I'm speaking as an old salesperson. I used to be in sales, so you have to be careful about products. Yeah. Okay, let's see one last one. Question from Frank. Does this only work on Alma?
No, yeah, I mentioned University of Johannesburg have Esploro, but they don't have Alma. So it is available separately.
Okay, so you don't need both?
No.
Okay. Robert is here. You can engage with Robert, but he can't answer other questions that are from other competitors. Okay, thank you very much. And also to Tracy, thank you very much. And then you see, now we have Glenn now on my toes here. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Colleagues, we have a lot to think about with what we had.